Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Israel is accelerating war plans on multiple fronts. Israeli planes struck dozens of targets in Yemen yesterday in response to a Houthi missile attack on Ben Gurion Airport.
Meanwhile, the call-up of tens of thousands of reservists is foreshadowing a huge operation in Gaza. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made good on his promise to hit back at the Houthis for launching surface-to-surface missiles and drones toward Israel and its civilians. After a missile landed close to its main airport on Sunday, Israel's Air Force sent about 20 fighter jets to strike Houthi targets along Yemen's coast. The IDF said it struck the Hodeidah port, where Iranian weapons and military equipment that supply the Houthi regime are shipped into the country. Another target, the Bajil concrete plant, which is a source of income for the Houthis and is also used to build terrorist infrastructure. The increased pressure on the Houthis comes as Israel is calling up tens of thousands of reservists to carry out expanded operations against Hamas in Gaza. In a video posted on X, Netanyahu said Israel's goal is the defeat of Hamas and return of the hostages.
One thing will be clear. There will be no in and out. We'll call up reserves to come, hold territory. We're not going to enter and then exit the area only to carry out raids afterwards. That's not the plan. The intention is the opposite.
He also said Israel would create safe areas where Gaza's civilians will be relocated to the south.
There will be a movement of the population to protect them.
Meanwhile, analysts say the root cause still needs to be addressed. Oded Elam, former director of counterterrorism in the Mossad, told CBN News the real problem is not Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis, but their backers in Tehran.
Iran is the composer of whatever we see here. Although they do not take credit for any kind of attack that is initiated by proxies and like Hezbollah or like the Houthis or the Hamas and so on, but they are the big brother who actually hold the strings, and everybody's playing like a marionette to the theme and to the music.
He pointed out that Iran's greatest threat isn't just its pursuit of nuclear weapons.
And so the major threat to Israel is Iran, and I'm not just talking about the nuclear program, which is everybody knows about it, but I'm talking about initiating terror acts around the world against Jewish and Israeli targets all the time.
In Washington, hundreds of Christian and Jewish advocates gathered for Israel Advocacy Day, rallying lawmakers and citizens to stand firm for Israel and against anti-Semitism. That's more urgent than ever as polling shows some 53% of Americans holding a negative view of Israel, with the numbers highest among young Americans.
Well, we have got to educate, educate, educate. So we need to be on social media, much more aggressive, reaching those young people where they are.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, there's breaking news out of Yemen right now. Israeli planes are attacking the airport there. It seems to be an escalation on the side of the ideology that wants to wipe Israel off the map. It's just unimaginable to me that the Houthis would want to continue firing on Israel in light of the retaliation attacks from yesterday. But that's what they're continuing to do. Israel has no choice but to defend itself. Let's continue to stand with Israel. We certainly will here at the 700 Club. Let's educate our children, our grandchildren on the importance of Israel, not just from a biblical standpoint, but from a peace in the Middle East standpoint. The only country in the Middle East where Muslims have freedom of assembly and freedom of speech, the freedom to protest, all of those things, the only country where they can do that, well, it's Israel. And so to call it an apartheid state or somehow engaged in genocide, it just defies the facts that are on the ground. We have to resist this propaganda that's coming against it. We have to stand with Israel. In other news, Israel is responding to growing unrest inside Syria. Gary Lane has that story and more from the CBN newsroom. Gary?
Yes. Gordon, it's not only in Yemen and Syria, but tensions between local fighters and pro-government forces in Syria are increasing. Israeli drones carried out a strike near Damascus, calling it a warning operation to protect the Druze faith community. Chuck Holton has that story from Syria.
Gunmen patrolled the streets of Damascus last week following a deadly confrontation between local Druze militants and forces loyal to the new regime. At least 10 people were killed, highlighting the deep mistrust and lack of control that still plagues the Damascus suburbs more than a decade into Syria's civil war.
We are afraid because there are outlaw gangs. They are harming our nation. Of course, we are afraid because there's nothing to deter them. Security forces are coming here, but the problem is these gangs are out of control.
Officials announced a truce the next day, pledging to compensate victims and prosecute the perpetrators. Many here doubt it'll last, pointing to a long history of broken promises and failed ceasefires.
There are still attacks on Druze villages and areas. To be honest, when we fight for our community, we are fighting for Syria. We are not fighting for the Druze sect. This is our nation.
Why does this keep happening every now and then? It's as if there's no state or government in charge. They need to establish security checkpoints, especially in areas where there are tensions.
This week's unrest wasn't isolated. Just outside the capital, another clash left over a dozen dead, most of them Syrian security personnel. Israel later confirmed multiple drone strikes targeting what it called an extremist group preparing attacks on the Druze population. The operation marks the first time Israel has directly struck HTS forces inside Syria, a warning as the militant group attempts to expand its reach amid growing chaos.
Here in Syria's northeast, tensions are still just as high. The building behind me still shows the scars from where ISIS executed prisoners when they controlled this area back in 2015. Kurds, Christians, Yazidis, and even the Arab communities here are united in rejecting HTS as just another iteration of the Islamic State. So for now, this part of the country remains under Kurdish control, but locals say they're prepared to resist any takeover, and that resistance could set the stage for future conflict.
The overthrow of the Assad regime last December left a power vacuum here, and Syria is becoming a patchwork of competing factions. Extremist groups like HTS are instituting Sharia law in areas they control, often at the point of a gun. But with local communities resisting and outside powers like Israel stepping in, the next phase of Syria's conflict may be even more volatile. From northeast Syria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.